Why do celebrities relapse? Why is it a constant revolving door among famous people where you go in and out of rehab? And more importantly, why is this a big issue for you and I? Why is the sobriety culture so big on relapse? Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Miley Cyrus interview that popped up, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where she was talking about how she had been 6 months sober. Now, any of you guys who have followed her career for quite some time know that she has battled with addiction several times. I think she's had several issues with that, and her current issue is with that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down that interview. We're going to talk about some of the things that we can see and some of the stuff that you can spot with a sober person and with someone who's trying to get sober, and what leads to relapse. What are the warning signs when someone wants to get sober? What are the things that we see that kind of destine them for failure? And what are the things that we see that destine them for success? And I think as sober people and people trying to quit alcohol and drugs and all that stuff, I think we're going to look at this through a different lens and say, what's the deal here? Right? What's going on? Why are these people in a revolving door of sobriety? Why is it so difficult to find long-lasting sobriety for so many people? And today we're going to talk about that, and we're going to break down the interview that we watched where she talked about alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and various things like that, and some of the things that we saw that caught our eye as people who've been sober about 6 years. And what was it that we noticed in that that could lead to relapse or recovery? Now, I want to preface this on the outset. I don't know a whole lot about Miley Cyrus, not really that into that type of music. But in this interview, I think we need to look at this and understand, okay, me and Terry are not doctors, but there are certain patterns that we've seen throughout sobriety and recovery and with dealing with thousands of alcoholics on this channel. What have we seen? What is the pattern? Because life follows patterns. There's a pattern to addiction. There's a certain pattern that you follow, and what we need to do is we need to break that in a way that's strong. And if you get sober for the wrong reasons, your sobriety is not going to be very strong. So we got to focus on that. We got to look at that. We got to talk about the real deal of how this works. Very important. So, Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's a beautiful day to be sober. And yeah, and good morning, everybody. Just wanted to say hello to Derek. You're always early. Good to see you. I think you got 4 or 5 years somewhere around there. Douglas, good to see you. Nepali, Richard, awesome to see you again. What is that one? Sorry, I don't have my glass on. Gilpin, Minnie Jerez, and Braveheart, and lots of people. Ano, Buck, Quezzy. See a lot of repeats. That's good to see you guys all. And like I said, it's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Always a beautiful day to be sober.
Sobriety's going well.
Awesome. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the things. When I was watching this interview with Miley Cyrus and her talks about sobriety, she was talking, I think the interviewer had been sober for about 7 years, and I think it was kind of interesting to watch the interaction. Now, some of the things that I noticed was that she wasn't focused on 100% sobriety and a new life. This is a common flaw that we see where, you know, a lot of times they say you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get sober for the sake of being sober. Like, bottom line, we have to look at this, and this is why they say so many people need to hit rock bottom. And rock bottom could be different. It could be a guy losing his job. It could be a guy, you know, living in the gutter. It could be anything. It could be, you know, you get in a fight with your spouse. That could be rock bottom. But when we look at this, the reason so many people feel like they need to hit rock bottom, which I myself don't feel like you need that. I feel like I needed that because I'm pretty thick. But a lot of people don't need that. And so when we look at that, we want to get sober. We want to get sober for the sake of being sober because alcohol is ruining our life. And that's the only reason. Now, when I watched this interview, one of the big things that I saw was she said, I want to get sober so that I could focus on my singing career. Now, this was a flaw that I had when I was trying to get sober. She's doing a lot better than I did when I was trying on my own. She's got 6 months. Back then, my goal was to string together 3 weeks, and that was my big goal. And I wanted to get sober so that my business would do better and certain aspects of my life would do better. And I was looking at sobriety as a means to an end. It's like, okay, I'm going to get sober so that I can be. I'm going to get sober so that I can do. I'm going to get sober so I can finally get rich, so I can finally have the relationship I want, so I can finally have this or that. And I think that was a big flaw because I was looking at the end point of, okay, I'm just going to get sober long enough so I can do this stuff, right? And instead of the goal being, I need a new way of life, this way of life isn't working anymore. It was more focused on, I'm going to get this or I'm going to get that. Does that make sense, Terry? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what I was seeing in the interview is that when she was initially trying to get sober, it wasn't for the real right reasons. One of the things that stuck out with me is she had to have vocal cord surgery. So she was about to lose something that was way more important than drinking to her. And for me, that was a very similar thing as well. And for me, it was literally my life. I was about to lose my life. And that was, keeping my life was more important than drinking. But as Marcus said, it's, people can get sober at different levels of or they have a different rock bottom. And that's what we're trying to do here is for those of you that are still struggling, maybe you can find that sobriety before you have to hit that rock bottom, because some people, that rock bottom is horrible. And for others, it's not. I work with a lot of people that were able to get sober before they lost anything, or before they had those yets, like I haven't gone to jail yet, or I haven't lost my home yet, or anything like that. Some people can get sober that way. So that's an important thing. And for her, she's pretty early in sobriety. I think she's 6-7 months, something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but right around there, she's pretty early. But she had to put sobriety as her top priority, and that's the case with me. That's what has to happen for me, and for anybody who's seriously addicted. They have to put sobriety first above everything else, because without the sobriety, you're not going to have anything else. And for me, when I finally got sober and stayed sober, it became my priority in life. And in that early sobriety, I didn't have to worry about, or I didn't worry about why I became addicted. That was a huge, important thing for me. I wondered, why did I become an addict? But that wasn't what I had to focus on. I had to focus on getting sober, and what do I have to do today to stay sober? Absolutely. Of course, I had to pay attention to the things like, okay, don't go down the liquor aisle, don't go to bars, don't hang out with drinking friends, stuff like that. But really, the reasons were not important at that point. It was just doing what I had to do to get sober. And that's an important thing. And just making it your priority. Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that really stood out as well was the stigma. There's a stigma she talked about where she's like, I don't know, I think she's like 30 or 28 or something like that. And she said, I'm young. And part of the hurdle that I'm getting through is, do I really have to commit to not drinking for the rest of my life? And am I still going to be fun? Right? And people look at it like, okay, what am I going to do here? Am I still going to be fun? Am I still going to be able to live a good life if I don't have alcohol involved? And how do I look at this? Like, I got sober when I was 35 or 34, I think it was. And, it was there. The stigma was there for me too. Like, am I not going to be able to drink? Am I not going to be able to have this? And I had to look past that, and I had to say, you know what? Drinking doesn't work for me. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm 10 or 500 years old. Drinking doesn't work for me. This way of life is not working. And I think that stigma keeps us stuck, much like the other things get us stuck, where, we're looking at sobriety as a means to an end rather than a journey. Sobriety is a journey of a sober life. And we have found repeatedly, and I'm sure Miley Cyrus has found also repeatedly, alcohol and drugs don't work in our life. For whatever reason, I can't just have one. For whatever reason, I got to go and drink the whole bar as much as I can. And for whatever reason, I'm the guy that can't stop. And we have to look at that, and we have to say, okay, this is different for me, and I need to focus on getting sober for me. And it doesn't matter if I can't drink again in the rest of my life, because, quite frankly, I probably have had more in my 4 or 5 years of active addiction than most people have in their life. Like, I probably had more in 1 year than the average person drinks in their life. So I think I'm good there. You know, I think I've tried enough, and we got to look at that. And another thing I noticed in this talk with Miley Cyrus about sobriety was not having a sobriety plan. Right? She talked about her career, she talked about her life, and she might have a plan. I don't know. I mean, we got what we could get off of a 30-minute interview, but not with me. It was an interview with someone else. And so we look at it like, okay, what's the deal here? What's going on? And what's your sobriety plan? And it looked like her sobriety plan was, you know, the vocal surgery made me rethink my life and made me rethink what I'm doing. And so I'm going to focus more on being a better singer and being a better this and doing better at this. And there wasn't really the sobriety plan. When I got sober, there was a plan of what are you going to do to not drink every day? What are you going to take your time with? For me, I wasn't a fan of AA, but in rehab, they said, hey, you know what? Go to AA for 90 days every day. And I was like, I need to get sober. So if they tell me, you know, put your shoes on backwards every day, I would have done it. I don't know how it would have worked, but I would have done it because I would have done anything to get sober because I know that drinking was leading me to a path where I wouldn't be alive anymore. Drinking was leading me to a path of insanity. Drinking was screwing up my mindset and my thoughts, and I was down a path that wasn't working. And so we got to look at that and say, what are we going to do and what's our plan going to be? What's my plan going to be if I go out and people are drinking? What's my plan going to be if there's a party about me and everyone's drinking in my honor? What are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? What's my plan when something like the pandemic hits and I don't know what to do with myself for 90 days sitting at home and I can't really go outside, right? We can go outside, but not in groups and things like that. You know, what am I going to do here? How am I going to cope with this? Because some things in life are mechanisms that we don't know how to cope with. And if you don't have a coping mechanism, you're going to fall back on your default, and your default is to drink. And for many of these celebrities, their default is always to drink and drug because of many issues that they try to solve without the sobriety point. They're trying to, okay, I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to get this. Therapy's good. It's great. Good thing. But is it what's going to get you sober? I know for me, in my personal experience, going to therapy did not get me sober. I actually had a therapist that I think it's illegal where that in California when I had the therapist to treat a patient drunk, and I would go plastered. I would I remember one time I was late for therapy and I was pissed at my wife, and I had the drinks in my car, and I had spilled them all over my therapy papers and myself, and I just reeked of alcohol. And I go in and he's like, "Oh, is that Bud Light?" And I'm like, wow, okay, I guess I didn't know at the time that it was not proper to treat someone who is actively drunk, but now I do. And so we look at that and it's like, does it really work? Now, there's bad therapists, there's good therapists, there's mediocre therapists, but I think looking to therapy as the answer is the wrong path, because therapy stuff is about your life stuff. Sure, we got things in our life we got to fix. We're addicts. We know there's stuff in our life to fix. But that's not the be-all, end-all, because the fact of the matter is we now drink because of the drink, right? It's not because of your mom. It's not because of your dad. It's not because it runs in your family. You drink because you drank. Drinking begets drinking, to put it in a biblical word, right? And so when you drink that much, you become an alcoholic. And it doesn't matter if you solve your relationship problem. That might be a reason you go to the bar after you're already drunk all day. Like, I remember I would drink all day. My wife would piss me off. And I'd be like, fuck it, I'm going to go get more. I would have gotten more anyway. I was looking for an excuse to drink as much as humanly possible every single day. And it didn't matter what the issue was. It mattered that I was an alcoholic. And understanding what alcohol does to your brain puts everything else to rest. It's like you're facing this gigantic mountain, and you're like, hey man, if I could just get these rocks out of the way, I could climb up the mountain. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have a rope, you don't have a plan, you're just moving rock. I mean, yeah, the rocks need to be out of the way, but you got a big mountain to deal with. You're sitting here screwing around with pebbles, and there's a mountain, and the mountain is the sobriety, and the stuff in your life is kind of a moot point, right? When I got sober, it was like, wow, all these things that I thought I was drinking over aren't really that big of a deal anyway. And that brings us to the next thing, which is trying to find the root cause of addiction. Why am I an alcoholic? This will make you mad. This will make you crazy, because you're an alcoholic because you drink. That's it. You might have had a bad past, but there's people who have had bad pasts that never touched drinking, never touched drugs. And so we got to look at that and say, trying to find the root cause of addiction is kind of a round robin to keep you stuck. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Oh, I agree. When I was drinking, I'd think about why was I an alcoholic? Because I knew I was an alcoholic before I stopped. And, I'd just go around in that circle, and I'd wonder, and maybe it was because I hung out with the wrong people. I didn't have a lot of trauma in my life, so I couldn't attribute it to that, but I just kind of figured I just hung out with the wrong people. I made the wrong choices, and that's why I became an alcoholic. But once I got sober, it didn't matter. It still doesn't matter. As far as my reason why I became an alcoholic, it's because I'm an addict, because I drank too much. It's that simple for me. I don't worry about the whys. I worry about some of the behaviors that I used to do, and that's where I changed my behavior and worked on changing my mindset from the very beginning. A mindset of gratitude, being thankful for what I have and not focusing on the negative things. And there's other things that I do every day, and that's, I try to help other people. I try to get away from focusing on those negative things. Because if I focus on those negative things, that's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become a negative person. And that's what helps me immensely, is being positive, being grateful. Another thing is like cleaning house. So what I mean by that is just by taking care of cleaning myself up, not worrying about other people, but working on myself, making myself a good person, living a good way. I said that wrong, but living a good life, just being responsible, being able to be held accountable and show up when I say I'm going to show up, and things like that. Those are super important. And when I started to live that way, those little rocks and pebbles that were in the way from before, those just kind of went away. I didn't have to attack those things. Like when I was in my addiction, I'd have a problem come up, I'd try to attack it and take care of it, or just drink instead, and it wouldn't go away, or a different problem would come up. And instead, focusing on these other things in my life, I don't have those problems anymore. One thing Miley Cyrus did say in her interview that I liked was she simplified her life. So that made total sense to me, because that's what I did too. Is I just simplified my life. I cut down on all those extra things, and that makes it so much easier to approach life on a daily basis. And for some people, that's not possible, especially right away after getting sober, because maybe you've caused so much damage through your life, and you got a lot of stuff to clean up. But it's really a good thing to do, to just try to focus on simplifying, taking a step back, pausing, not reacting to situations, but taking a pause and responding to them, thinking about how you're going to respond in a productive way. And that's the kind of things that helped me the most in my sobriety. And
Absolutely.
I want to say congratulations for 10 years. John, I believe, right? I got to scroll back up. But congratulations, that's awesome. Great to hear.
Congrats on that.
So,
and I think that's very true, because a lot of times, we have this root cause of addiction, and what we think a root cause is, and the root cause is because you drink. Like, you would not be an addict. Like, having family problems, having family alcohol addiction, having all this stuff, you would never be an alcoholic if you never drank. So the root cause of addiction is that you drank or used, plain and simple. Like, there's plenty of people who deal with things outside of it. Now, what's happened is you've used that as your coping mechanism, and that's your go-to for everything. And unless you find something better, you're going to always default to your coping mechanism of choice, whether that's drugs, whether it's alcohol, whatever it is. And if you're always in this round robin of, I'm going to find out why I'm an addict, I'm going to find out, we're going to get to the root of this. Well, the root of it is the alcohol. And once you understand that, now you know that there's not something causing your addiction other than drinking. So now it's very pragmatic, and you're like, take the drinking out, problem solved. Okay, you can deal with your relationship with other people. You can deal with what happened with your life in therapy. You could deal with all this stuff. But if you do that with a drunk mindset and you're expecting that to solve your alcoholism, you're in for a world of hurt. And I think this is why so many celebrities and you know, people like Miley Cyrus and stuff like that do have this issue, because they're looking at it the wrong way, as I did, as Terry did, as so many alcoholics do and so many addicts do, because we're like, oh, there's something that it's not just the drink. There's something else that causes it. And it's the drink. It's the alcohol. That's why we relapse, because we let our guard down and we say, well, now I've patched that up with this other person. I can drink again. And we got to look at that. Now, another thing I noticed that was very important, which was something I dealt with extensively before I got sober, and that was life identity issues. Now, for me, I have a business where there's a couple of people who watch my stuff. It's not like huge or anything, but I remember there was an identity thing where I was like, oh, what are people going to think? What are my business colleagues going to think? What is this going to be? And what life do I need to live up to? And I think for celebrities, it's very difficult, because it's like, okay, you have the world saying you need to be this way. This is how you're expected to be. And for me, when I was drinking, people urged it. They were like, that's cool. He's the drunk webinar guy. He goes on webinars, he drinks and makes money. That's pretty cool. And they kind of egged it on, and I felt like I needed to be this certain way. And I felt like I needed to make a certain amount. And I felt like I needed to please people. And I felt like I was kind of like a fraud in my life. Like I'm not authentic with who I am versus who I portray to the world. And I found that to be a big issue. And I found with sobriety, it became something I really didn't care about. I was like, hey, you know what? This is kind of who I am. Yeah, I went to a mental hospital. Yeah, I have an addiction problem. Yeah, this is who I am. Welcome to the human condition. It's who I am. This is what we got. And when you have that, it gives you a level of humility where you're like, okay, this is very important. This is very important. And you go through it, and you look at it, and you focus.
Yes, indeed. Let me put my glasses on so I can read some of these.
Excellent.
Lots of great comments. Awesome. Just going back up to the beginning. Minnie Jerez says, read Russell Brandt's book, Recovery and Addiction. He has been sober for almost 2 decades. As a celebrity, he explains it's not enough money in the world to make you happy. And yeah, I love his outlook on sobriety. He says it straight up. And yes, indeed, that's a good book.
Let's take a couple of other issues that I made notes on while you're looking for comments
sure.
as well.
Yeah.
Another thing, she says, anyone who smokes weed is dumb. I don't know. I know for me, personally, smoking weed makes me want to drink, so I don't do it. Also, I found that it's an anxiety issue for me. Last time I had it, it was very anxiety provoking. Thought that was interesting. Again, she mentioned over and over that her goal was to polish her craft as a singer and be better in her career, rather than I need to get sober for sobriety's sake and nothing else matters. And I think that's the key, is getting to the point where nothing matters other than sobriety. And that's one of the things Russell Brand talks about. He's like, I had to get sober because I was going to die. I had to get sober because my life was nothing. And sobriety gives you a new way of life. And I think when you look at it that way, it's kind of the hidden gift, right? The hidden gift, and this is why they say in recovery circles, stick around till the miracle happens. Because I think if you live sober long enough, it's going to start to change your mind and your thoughts. Much like right now with the whole pandemic thing, you watch certain people who watch the news all the time, and I noticed that with myself in the beginning of this, where I would watch the news because I thought that's what you got to do. There's a pandemic. You got to watch what the news tells you because, that's what's out there. And I noticed that it started to change my thought process, and it started to change my outlook, and it started to make my overall demeanor lower. And there's actually been studies done. There was a documentary of a guy who watched a certain news channel, and he became unrecognizable to his family because he watched it so much, and that's what he got. And so much in the way of sobriety, like if you hang out with sober people and you listen to sober people and you talk with sober people and you read sober stuff and you understand this, it's going to get in your mind. Your mind is like a lens, and you get what you focus on. If you're going into sobriety saying, hey, I want to be a better singer, I want to make more money, I want to, patch up my relationship or whatever, you're going in there pointing your lens in the wrong direction. Your lens need to be focused on drinking screws up my life, drugs screw up my life, therefore I need to focus on not doing those. I need to focus on not doing that stuff. And that's number one. Maybe as a byproduct, I'll become better in my business. Maybe as a byproduct, I'll get a better relationship. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe my relationship will fail. Maybe that part is going to keep me stuck. But at least I have my sobriety, and that's all I can really have. And I think it's important to look at and look at that. Now, some other things she talked about was with her vocal surgery, she had 4 weeks where she was unable to talk, which I can imagine would be frustrating. And she said she was frustrated. But she also says it gave her a stillness and a quietness, and it forced her into a reflective period. So she was reflecting on her life and looking at, okay, how does this stuff work? How does my addiction work? What's going on? And I think that's a good thing. I think it's good to reflect. But I think we need to reflect on the right thing, and we need to reflect on what alcohol is doing to our life. What are drugs doing to our life, and how do we deal with that? Right? How do we deal with that? Not reflecting, because she talked about a lot of reflecting about past family, and she said a quote which was, by understanding the past, the present and future are much better. Yes and no. Like, I don't think that's an absolute true statement, because, if I understand the past, like if I understand, for those of you who know, if I understand why my grandma was married 16 times, does that make my life any better? No. Now, if I understand that my grandma was an alcoholic, that might shed a little light on the fact. But again, my sobriety is my own, and it doesn't matter what happened in the past. It doesn't matter what happened in my family tree. What matters is right now, I have a problem, and I need to get past it. This is the problem. Alcohol is a problem, not the past stuff. And we look at that because in her reflection stuff, she's very big on therapy, looking to therapy to solve all the answers and solve all the problems, which a lot of people are, which I think is good. Therapy is a good thing. But I think when it comes to addiction, we need to solve addiction with the tools that are meant for addiction, right? I wouldn't go try to fix my car with, my keyboard. I wouldn't take this out there and be like, I'm going to fix my rotors because I need new brakes. I'm going to fix them with my keyboard. No, I'm going to get a wrench. I'm going to get the tools that are meant for the car. And when we look at sobriety, we need the tools that are meant for sobriety. And those tools are not the same thing therapy provides, unless your therapist is an addiction counselor and you're talking about that issue. So we need to look at that, and we need to focus. Another big thing I saw was she had family addiction issues, abandonment, wanting to prove you're wanted and valuable. I think this was interesting because you look at someone like Miley Cyrus or a celebrity, and you're like, who doesn't want their life? Who doesn't want to be revered and have crowds of people doting all over you? And yet here's this person who doesn't feel valuable. I mean, she's worth like $1 billion or something, and we use the word worth loosely because I think it's better to say she has $1 billion because there's no price tag on a person. People are worth an inherent value because of who they are and what they are, not because of what they do. And having a pile of cash, we see these celebrities are like, this is not the thing. We did a talk about Jim Carrey where he said, I wish everyone would get rich and famous so that they figure out it's not about being rich and famous. And I think us trying to attain this life that is glamorized and this life that, even on a smaller scale, You look at the Instagram, you look at the Facebook, you look at people living their lives, and oh, that guy's vacationing all the time, and this guy's over here, and this guy bought a new jet, this guy bought a new car, they got a new house. Did you see what the Joneses did over there? And we're always comparing and looking at things instead of being happy with what we have. And what sobriety taught me is I have a lot. If I'm sitting on a chair and that's the only thing I own, I have a lot. Why? Because I'm sober and I'm okay today. And it doesn't matter what we have. Doesn't matter who likes us. Doesn't matter who doesn't like us. And I think it's interesting. And when we look at our stuff where it's like, you know, I want to be liked or whatever, that's not the solution. The solution is sobriety. And I think for someone like Miley Cyrus, if she got true sobriety for a long time, I don't know if her sobriety is true or not. It's between her and her life, you know. But I think true sobriety teaches you that there is value in you as a person regardless. We don't care how big your career is. We don't care how much stuff you've done. We don't care how much money you have. We care about you as a person. And when you can learn to care about yourself as a person regardless of what you've done, regardless of what you think you need to accomplish, whether good or bad, right? Some people look at their self-esteem and you're getting it from other places rather than getting it from within you. And when you get it from within you, everything start to change. And I think it's very important to look at that when we're looking at things like she looks at with why I am the way I am. Why am I this way? That was a big battle for me. Did you go through that, Terry? The whole, why am I this way?
Yeah, totally. And, you know, when in sobriety, you know, you brought up a lot of things there. And one was just, what do you want in life? And, you know, I was actually talking to my wife. We're doing this little exercise every evening for a few minutes. And last night the topic was kind of, what are our long-term goals? And, you know, I thought about it, and then that brought me back to when I was drinking and what were my long-term goals. And that was be a millionaire, have a big house, have the nice cars and all that stuff, all these material things. And that is what's going to make me happy. Mm-hmm. And now, when I really think about it, I'm like, what are my long-term goals? I want to be happy still and serene. And how that happens, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I'm not sure how it's going to happen, so I don't worry about it. But that's where I'm at now. Is just that's what I want. It's just happiness, gratitude, serenity. That's what I want. I want to be and to do that, I have to be sober.
Absolutely.
It's not going to work if I'm drinking. That's for sure. But yeah.
Another note that I wrote down was that cute cliches don't keep us sober. There's a lot of cute cliches and Facebook posts and Instagram memes that, you know, they might make you think to some point, but they don't keep us sober. What keeps us sober is staying away from alcohol and changing our way of thinking. Another thing Miley Cyrus mentioned was she likes in sobriety waking up 100% of the time. Right? I wake up and I feel good every day. And I think that's interesting because that was kind of like a goal of her sobriety. Like, hey, I wake up. This is why I stay sober, because I wake up 100%. And I think that is kind of destined for failure for a lot of people. Not saying it will be for her. We don't know. I don't know what will happen with me. I could start drinking again someday. I hope I don't. I'm planning on not, but we don't know. But I think one of the things that's like is in sobriety, I've been sober 6 years, and I've had some days that were not 100%. I woke up feeling like crap. I had some days that it was a win just to not drink that day. I wasn't productive. I wasn't good. I was a miserable person all day, but I was like, damn, I made it through that sober. And that's the goal. Instead of waking up, like today, I didn't wake up 100%. I didn't feel good when I woke up. Been sleeping, you know, sporadically lately. And that would be an easy thing to say, well, I'm waking up 100%. Now I'm not. Maybe I'll try drinking again because I'm not 100%, and that was my goal. And I think that's a big thing because we're not always 100% of what we are. Sometimes you're sick. Sometimes you have a bad day. Sometimes your mental state's off. What if you go and you have surgery or something and you wake up and you're like, yeah, I'm not 100% because they took a kidney out and I don't feel good or whatever. It's like you got to look at that. And what was that like for you, Terry, when you had the first day after you had been sober for a while and you're feeling good, and you woke up one day and you're like, damn, I feel like shit today?
Yeah. I just did what I was told to do. What I was told to do on a daily basis, and that was just be grateful and move forward. And the one thing when I was sober, my answer was always, when I was, not when I was sober, when I was drinking, my answer was always just grab more drinks and you'll feel better. And yeah, I felt better most of the time for that fraction of a minute, and then it went right back to where I felt like crap. But in sobriety, it still happens. Yesterday, I woke up and my head was all stuffed up. I was sneezing. I couldn't stop sneezing. I'm like, oh boy, what does this mean? And that's probably how any of us feel now when we start to feel sick. We're like, do I have COVID? But no, I took care of what I needed to take care of. I took an allergy pill. I drank a bunch of water. I sat there and relaxed instead of just went flying. Okay, I got to get this and this and this and this done today. No, I mellowed out and I felt better towards the end of the day. Sometimes I've had things like when my mom passed away about a year and a half ago. I'm not going to feel better. I didn't feel better. I was bummed out for a while, and that's okay. And that's the thing, is to be in acceptance that I'm not going to feel good every day. But she does have a little bit of a point there, waking up 100%, because, I can wake up and take care of things. Or like I remember in sobriety having to wake up in the middle of the night and take my dog to the emergency. And I was able to do that, and I'm able to go to the supermarket and go shopping at 11 p.m. and do a full shopping trip. I see her point in that, but I definitely don't wake up 100% happy all the time. But I have tools that can get me back there. And actually, the other thing is I know it's okay to not be happy all the time. It's just part of being a person. If we didn't have any bad days, how could we possibly measure a good day? That's what it's all about. So that's life. We have ups and downs, and it's okay.
Absolutely. And I think some other things she mentioned as well, and before I get to that, I think it's important to notice that waking up 25% sober is better than 100% drunk. Because when we're drunk, we're never waking up 100%, and we never feel good. And we don't realize it, because a good day when you're drinking is you've lowered your baseline. And when you're sober, your baseline's a lot higher, which is good, and we want to keep it at that. One other thing she mentioned, and then we'll get into something that I really noticed about her talk, something that was kind of subtle, but I think it's important. She said structure helps. Structure your life so that, whatever you're doing, if you're going to meetings, if you're talking to people, if you go to work, whatever it is, structure your life so that you don't have to drink. And I think that's very important, because structure is a big thing, especially for people like me or Terry, I think, was self-employed for some time. I've been self-employed, and we don't have like that structure, and it's very difficult sometimes. Now, one of the things I do want to get into that I think was the most damaging thing that I heard in that interview, and maybe a warning for all of us, and certainly a warning in my life and my sobriety, was that she said the thing that she loves about pop culture, which she's obviously part of pop culture, she likes the escapism. She likes the fact that you can escape life through pop culture, whether it's movies, TV, songs, different life, or whatever. She talked about how she liked that. And I think that's a big, big, big warning, because if you get sober and you still feel the need to escape your life, there's a problem. Because I drank to escape the life I had created and the person I had become. And that was one of the reasons. I also drank because I was an alcoholic, which is the main reason. But one of the big things was I wanted an escape. I wanted a way out. And when we look at escapism, whatever we're escaping to, whether it's TV, whether it's your career, whether it's your relationship, whether it's whatever it is, maybe you become like a sports junkie or whatever, and that's your thing. Whatever it is, if we're looking for it as an escape, not for the pure enjoyment of doing it, I think there's a big problem and a big worry, because if you're trying to escape your life, it means there's incongruency. And one of the biggest things that keeps us drinking is incongruency in our life, whether it's not understanding and being okay with who we are, whether it's just needing to escape from racing thoughts that we can't get rid of. Whatever it is, if we feel the need to escape, there's something wrong. And I can tell you that for the last 6 years, there's been a handful of times I've thought about, hey, yeah, I'm not digging this. Maybe there's an escape. Or maybe sometimes when I'm just dead tired and I want something else on my mind. But I find that the best times I have are when I'm able to not escape, but sit with it. Because what we're really escaping is something that's made up in our mind, and all of the problems we have are made up in our mind. And if we look at that and we understand that, then all the solutions are pretty easy to find. We just let go. And sobriety is not about what I'm going to get, who I'm going to be, how my life's going to be better. It's about I'm going to accept and I'm going to surrender to the fact that what I've done up until now is not working. It's not working, like you look at people like Miley Cyrus or Bam Margera or Richard Branson, I think it's how you, or Richard, what's his name? The guy you said you liked earlier.
Russell something.
Russell Brand.
Russell Brand.
There you go. When you look at this, it's like they have everything everyone says they want, yet they still feel the need to escape. And when we look at it and we say, I need to sit and I need to accept that this is where I'm at, for whatever reason, doesn't matter, right? I am now an alcoholic or an addict. Now what? Well, maybe I'm an alcoholic because my grandma, no. I'm an alcoholic, now what? Because if we look at it to solve a problem, to fix a thing, to be better, that's the wrong reason. Now, you might be better. Like, I think a lot of people in sobriety do become better people, in terms of like more helpful and things like that, and not drunk. That's definitely a good thing. But I think looking at sobriety, like, what's the reason? How do we navigate long-lasting, non-relapsing sobriety that's going to stick? And I think the way that we do that is to look at, I am doing this because I'm a drunk. I'm doing this because I'm an addict. And being a drunk and being an addict is no longer working. And so that's where we're at. And we accept that. And then we move from there. But until you accept that, it's going to be very difficult to change. If you say, oh, I'm an addict because, in 1982, this happened. Or I'm an addict because of this. Or I need to escape. When we look at that, we're going at it the wrong way. But if we focus and we say, I give up, the best I got, all my stuff led to this moment. Doesn't matter where, why, how, when. What matters is this is where we're at. How are we going to deal with it? And the problem in life, which I'm not a huge fan of Tony Robbins, but I like a few of his things. And one of the things that he says is people spend 90% of the time worrying about the problem and only 10% working on the solution. And you see this all the time. Gossip circles, people talking about stuff, all kinds of things, your mind, right? You're dwelling on the problem. How many hours did you spend dwelling on, I'm an alcoholic, why I'm an alcoholic, why do I do this, why do I keep drinking, why did I do that, why is my life like this? How much time did you actually spend saying, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And not, oh my God, what am I going to, no. I'm an alcoholic, what am I going to do tomorrow? If I don't want to drink, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go to the bar, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to, spend time with these people till I'm ready, if I ever am. What am I going to do? And if you ask yourself that, it flips the whole script. And instead of looking at a means to an end in sobriety, you look at sobriety as a way of life. It's not a means to an end. It's not a means to get what you want. It's not a means to be better, do better, have more. It's a way of life. Why? How do I know that? Because drinking was a way of life. The only way to solve it is by having a new way of life.
Yep. That's it. That's one of the good tools for sobriety is replacing that drinking with something. Have something else that you do. For me, it's spending time with my family and riding a bike and walking my dog and hanging out with other sober alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
But Gerald and Minnie Jerez, they both kind of made some good points about that escape. Gerald says, "True, Richard, the problems you are trying to escape when you pass out will still be there when you wake up with the headache, unless they are dealt with." And Minnie Jerez says, "True, I've been pretty dramatic with my problems, and in drunken benders, I couldn't see my problems weren't as tragic as I thought. I just had to sit down and do the mental work sober." And for me, when I was drinking, that the escape for me, it wasn't so much. Sometimes it was about life things that I was trying to escape from, but mostly what I was trying to escape was the bad feeling of not, coming off of alcohol. The feeling that I knew I was an alcoholic, the feeling that I couldn't control it, that I had to take that walk to the liquor store, and that my life was just slowly going down, and that's what I was escaping from. But my escape was to just drink more and stay drunker and drunker. Now, obviously, that's a pretty bad funnel to be going down, But that was one of the reasons and one of the things I was trying to escape. And yeah. So, hey, Braveheart, congratulations on day 88. And, Romacop, you're on day 7. I saw you talking about that quite a bit earlier too. Good job. And that John has 10 years, and for those of you with just a couple days or maybe one day, that's just as huge. That for me, that's even bigger, is being able to get 1, 2, or 3 days. I could never get that until I finally did, but it took a long time to be able to get that 1, 2 days sober.
Yep.
So.
Well, and just admitting.
Good job.
Admitting to yourself something needs to change. This isn't working. And when we look at that and we focus on, okay, something's wrong, and it's the alcohol, and I'm an alcoholic, and you admit that to yourself, I think that's the big step, is understanding, hey, you know what? This is the problem. Because we want to blame everything else. I don't know why, but alcohol is like that abusive person in an abusive relationship that's like, oh no, he means well, he's not a bad guy, and he's like beating her up, and it's like, no, the guy's a bad guy. Like, good guys don't hit people. And alcohol is the same way, but we feel the need to protect it. No, this is about my mom. This is about this. This is if I just had more money. This isn't the alcohol. No, it is the alcohol. It might not be for everyone, but it is for me. And that's where we got to start, and we got to focus on that. Braveheart says, my therapy is very structured around alcoholism, not just blabbing about my feelings, cognitive behavioral therapy type methods. Yes, I think therapy can be good, and it can be a tool for alcoholism, but I think the plan needs to come first. I think your plan of sobriety, what am I going to do, needs to come before therapy. And the reason is because the problem is not really a therapy problem. There can be a solution aspect. Like, therapy can be part of your solution, absolutely. And it could be a great part of your solution. But I think if you put that above, I need to stay sober today, what am I going to do? I think there's going to be, I found that it was very difficult to do that. Now, again, when I tried that back in the day, I was still drinking, so to each his own there. But I think, I think we need to keep things in line, because the most important problem at hand is alcohol or drugs. That's the most important thing at hand right now. And all the other stuff you can deal with, you can get help with. But right now, we need to focus on what are we going to do. And if you're going to your therapist and you say, I need a plan to stay sober every day, that's great. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah, but, let me give you my perspective on the therapy and all that. I saw therapists, years before I got sober. I didn't use I used an alcohol therapist from the hospital just for a short time. And she told me, go to meetings, pretty obvious. But, for me, what I would think the key with therapy is the same as the key to being sober. You have to absolutely, down to your core, be honest. That's it. What Marcus is talking about when he was in his therapy, he wasn't being as honest as he could be. So that's where he had some failures there. And that's where a lot of people have failures in therapy, is they're not completely honest. And when I did therapy years ago, Sarah, I was nowhere near honest. The therapy is actually about marriage. So I wasn't going to say anything about my alcohol use. But, that's the key, is that honesty. And then the second thing is the willingness. And that's being, willing to do what this person suggests. So being honest with yourself, willing to do and actually doing what they suggest. Like they suggest go to meetings, or go to an outpatient at the hospital, or address this situation. Not just saying okay, but doing it. And that's where the sobriety can happen, is in those action steps, taking care of those issues slowly, quickly, whatever it takes. But those are huge things, and those were huge for me in sobriety. I didn't use a therapist. I used meetings, and I used the hospital outpatient, and I hung out with sober alcoholics and did what they told me to do. And that was just non-professional therapy, but I still did therapy on that level. And that's what I learned, was honesty, willingness, and then I had to be open-minded to do whatever. And that's why I'm telling you, I did all these different things. I didn't say, well, this one's not going to work. Oh, this is the only book that works, or this is the only thing that works. No, that's not true. People find sobriety in different ways. Miley Cyrus, she found it without anything except she sees a therapist, and then she has a support mechanism with her family and friends, and she doesn't hang out with the partiers anymore, or at least she says, and that worked for her. My brother, he's did and does AA a little bit, but he's sober 32 years. So it can be done in different ways. And I know many people in AA that's what they swear by. It just doesn't matter what direction you go, but the key is don't shut any method of recovery off. That's what I would recommend for anybody, is don't just say this one doesn't work just because it didn't work for somebody, or it didn't work for you one time, or anything like that. Try it again. Keep in mind with it.
I think one of the things you'll find again is that it's the mindset you go in with. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. You could do the, I'm just not going to the bar sobriety plan. If you go in it with the wrong mindset, you're going to end up going to the bar. But if you go into it with the mindset of, I need to do anything to stop this, because I can't stop on my own. That's where I was. I could not stop on my own. There was no way to do it. And, whatever it is that works for us. Now, Stephen says, when I go to any sort of treatment or AA and they talk about alcohol and how bad it is, it makes me think about alcohol, and I go get drunk every time. Well, I was right there with you. I mean, when I first went, that's all it made me think about, because, again, a lot of times you're focusing on the problem rather than the solution. What I learned throughout sobriety, though, is to listen for the solution. What can I take from someone that's talking about their drinking problem, whether they're going through like a big rambling of what they did when they were drunk, or whether they're talking about how they missed the booze, or whatever it is, right? What can I take from it? Because there's bits and pieces you can take, and no matter where you go, no matter if you do AA, I know Terry does that, whether you do kind of your own thing like I do, or lots of other people have different issues. Terry's brother does his own thing. However we look at that, we need to understand that it's all us. Like, there is no magic in any book except for what you put into it, right? I give a guy down the street who's not an alcoholic, reads the book, he'll be like, yeah, this was written by a couple of lunatics, don't know about it, right? But to the right person with the right tools, what they're going to do is they're going to find a way to do it. And whatever resonates with you. Steven says, or Seven Stack says, I've been able to stay sober by completely avoiding any education and anything that has to do with alcohol. Well, how's that working for you would be my first question. What's going on? How is that working? If it does work, keep doing more of what works. and make a plan for when it doesn't work so good, and really focus on that. Also, for those that are looking for a good way to get and stay sober, we have put together a 30-day recovery plan over at talksober.com. Sorry, Terry, this is going to cover you up for a minute. Go to talksober.com, click on the big yellow button. You can join our sobriety plan. We have 30 days of trainings, videos, PDFs, all kinds of things you can go through that are designed to help you get and stay sober. Again, this is not to replace rehab or anything. If you think you need to go to rehab, go to rehab. If you do want some extra help or some extra things, some insight that we've found, I think this will be a very, very good thing. Or if you can't go to rehab, it might be a good thing as well. Terry and I are not doctors. We put this together based on what we've done to stay sober and what we've learned and everything like that. So you can go to talksober.com, click on the yellow tab here, and you can just fill this out for less than the price of a cheap beer a day. You can support what we're doing and get all the tools and everything like that to help you get and stay sober. And if you want to support the channel here, we do have quite a bit of costs involved in making the show for you guys. You can click on support our work, and you can just do like a one-time donation or something like that to support what we're doing as a way of saying thank you for putting these out there and helping us spread the word with other people. And that's all at talksober.com. All right. You're back, Terry.
Oh, hello. Yeah, Braveheart, you said you tried AA meetings for many years and it didn't ever resonate with you, and you like Smart Recovery and Refuge Recovery Program. I've heard of Smart Recovery. I haven't heard of Refuge Recovery. I'll have to check it out. But hey, whatever works, man, that's awesome. You're doing something, and hopefully it's working. Hopefully you're happy. That's the key for me is not just not drinking. I know some people that are sober and they're angry and that's their life. It's being happy. That's the key with sobriety for me, is being happy all the time. And I forgot who said it, but way earlier there, you were talking about your sobriety and how that you were worried, and that's what I was worried about. The same thing was, I was worried that when I got sober, I wasn't going to have any more fun. and I look back on what I was doing in those that last while of drinking, and I wasn't having any fun. I was sitting in a house with the windows closed and not answering the door, not answering the phone, and drinking, watching bad TV. That's what I was doing. And now that I'm sober, I get to go and have all those fun things. One thing that was mentioned earlier that Marcus talked about with Miley Cyrus was talking about the pressure of being young and sober. And I don't know about the areas where you guys live, but in my area, there's a huge fellowship of young, sober people, and they're always doing stuff. They're going out water skiing and skiing during the winter and doing all sorts of different stuff. And they have a good time. They just don't drink while they're doing it. And I find that to be the case with me as well. I can go and do lots of things and still enjoy myself. Mm-hmm. I don't go to the bars. I don't make a habit of that. But there's so much more in life to have fun with. Refuge Recovery is Buddhist based. Okay, cool, man. Sounds good.
Yeah, I use a lot of philosophy in my own personal recovery. That's what we go through in the 30-day sobriety plan at talksober.com. A lot of different things. I found that for me, philosophy was one of the keys, changing my life philosophy, getting a new mindset. That was the key to me staying sober, because it made me look at everything different. And I worked hard on it, and that's what we put into the program. This is how I worked hard on it. This is what changed. This is how my mindset changed. This is what I did. Stuff like that.
I did a Buddhist-based. I did a 140-mile bicycle ride, and it was with a Buddhist group. I was the only non-Buddhist in the group. Good people. Mm-hmm. It was a very mellow bike ride.
Were you going like 3 miles an hour, or did they go fast?
Well, we started at a Buddhist temple in Marin County, and then we went north and we stopped at one called the Land of 10,000 Buddhas. in I don't know, 80 miles north in Ukiah, and then ended up at a tiny one that's in the hills at the end of it. And yeah, that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that concludes our overview of Miley Cyrus's sobriety talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did enjoy it, give this video a thumbs up and put your comments below. I always like to read those. I try to reply to as many as I can. And, you know, tell us what you liked. If you like this style and you want us to dig into more stuff like this, we can kind of go that angle and take it from there, which is cool. So until next time, check out talksober.com. You can either go and click the yellow button to join our recovery class, or if you just want to support our work, go ahead and click on support our work. It's a totally secure site. I paid a bunch of money to make this secure and everything. You could do a one-time donation of however much you want, and the more you give, the happy face gets happy. I didn't make that. That was part of the thing. But I thought it was kind of cool. Make the guy happy, right? So you can go in there, just fill this out, and it'll be a one-time deal. Or you could join our sobriety recovery class, which is just $27 a month, which has all kinds of stuff and tools and everything to help you stay sober. And also, if you've been sober for a while, I think it'll help you with the mindset. It's based on the book that I have coming out, hopefully soon. And you'll get a lot of that content as well. So really good stuff, really good way to interact and help out what we're doing here. So thanks again for being here. I'm Marcus. That's Terry over there somewhere. Which side he's on, I don't know if it makes this backwards or not. And till next time, we'll see you. Give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell, and we'll see you next week. All right, cool.